Neurotypical, heteronormative, standard OEM pronouns. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. The What's Right show is on. Brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. My email, sam@whatsrightshow.com. That's where you can reach me 24/7, anytime you want. Shoot me over a thought. I do look at all these emails personally, and I try, folks, as hard as I can to respond to each and every one of you personally. Now, before we get to things, I don't know if you saw this, there was a list that came out of the 100 most influential conservative podcasts. These are the must-listen-to podcasts in the U.S., conservative podcasts. And we are number 22. That's right, the What's Right show on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, number 22 in America. Very pleased by this. And folks, I have to say this from the bottom of my heart, it is your doing. This show would not exist. It would not be what it is without you. I ran into a listener today in town here in Las Vegas. He introduced himself to me, and you know, I'm just be very clear. The show is what it is because each and every one of you listens, supports me, and I just really am overwhelmed by this and absolutely humbled. So thank you. Now, who is about to get humbled is Adam Schiff. This news, by the way, this FBI 302 interview document that was declassified by Kash Patel, the FBI director, that is an interview with an associate, a close associate of Adam Schiff. And it is damning for Schiff and fellow Democrats that apparently there was obvious, naked, if you will, leaking that was occurring at the direction of then Congressman Adam Schiff of classified information, all with the intent of destroying Donald Trump's credibility. The whole thing was an op. That's certainly true. But here's what the here. Look, there's a lot of gems in this that I think media is kind of glossing over. But one of my favorite ones, by the way, is that Schiff had been promised by Hillary Clinton a very important position had Hillary Clinton won the election in 2016. You know what that was? Apparently, Clinton had told Schiff that he would become the CIA director. Imagine this weasel as the head of the CIA. Okay, so that did not happen. And according to sources, Schiff was distraught that Hillary had not succeeded in besting Trump, that she had, of course, been beaten by Trump in November of 2016, and then went into the spiral of denial and, of course, began creating a web of deceit, all with the express purpose of damaging Trump. So this is this is crazy. So here's the gist of what was recorded in the memo. There was a meeting, apparently. And I've got the memo in front of me. Now, some blacked out names in this memo. But it's the FBI agent that met with the witness at his St. Louis, Missouri home. It was an in-person interview and occurred on this particular one that I'm looking for. Apparently was, the interview was on 5/23 of 23. So this was in the Biden era. But apparently this was, here it is. There was an all-staff meeting called by Adam Schiff. In this meeting, Schiff stated that the group would leak classified information, which was derogatory to President Trump. Schiff stated that the information would be used to indict President Trump, stated that this would be illegal, and upon hearing his concerns, unnamed members of the meeting reassured the witness here, blanked out, that they would not be caught leaking classified information. In other words, even the Democrats on the committee, all the way as recently as 2023, were aghast that they would be directed by Schiff to engage in such egregious conduct. But there's even more to it than just this. And, well, let me tell you, like here's where it gets interesting. The Democratic whistleblower told the FBI in 2017, this is a different whistleblower, interview at his home, that the HPSCI, and the HPSCI, this is the House Committee, Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. That's what it stands for, HPSCI. This is where it was all going down, right? Schiff was bringing the Steele dossier in there, all the hocus pocus stuff that they had created to build up, this fake case against Trump, a basis to spy on Trump when he was running for office. And later, they used it, of course, to attempt to remove him from the presidency. At any rate, the whistleblower told the FBI that the work environment started to change around August of 2016. Now, let's use our Wayback Machine. August of 2016, what is going on at this time? Trump, of course, has secured the Republican nomination. After a year of being told by the media that Trump would never become president, all of the funny interviews, right, where Obama and other noted Democrats were interviewed about the possibility of a President Trump, and their snide, giggling responses, it's not going to happen. Well, anyway, all of a sudden, the worst nightmare of the Democratic Party came true. Trump became the nominee. That happened, in July? Robbie and I, we were there when it officially occurred in Cleveland, Ohio. So at any rate, that happens, and all of a sudden the Democrats are beginning to realize they're up against something that they had long been poo-pooing, but actually was a strong Trump himself, a major political force, was starting to pick up steam. At the same time, they started getting a little worried about Hillary. So that started changing around September 2016. Then remember, around early September, Hillary Clinton got the fanning spells in New York City. This was the 9/11 memorial that she attended. They had to bundle her up and put her in the van. Democrats broke into a panic at this point. All right. This is great. During a September 2016 staff meeting, other Democratic staffers revealed that they had provided on background information to journalists about their impressions of Russian activity surrounding the upcoming election. So people were openly talking in the Capitol by September that they were leaking classified information over to members of the media. Again, all to sabotage Trump. And now we know, because of the other disclosures made by Tulsi Gabbard and others, that a lot of the stuff that they were leaking was stuff that they created. So they created it. They gave it the veneer of respectability by having it be packaged by the intelligence community. In order for that to happen, it had to be given high levels of classification, of confidentiality. So then obviously this crap on Trump, this total nonsense on Trump, suddenly has all of these, is classified. This is coming from the CIA. It's coming from the IC. It's coming from all these top experts. And the only reason they did that was to give it credibility. And then, in turn, the Democrats, led by Adam Schiff, broke every law imaginable to release it to the media. The Democratic staffer told FBI agents during an August 2017 interview at the Bull Feathers restaurant in the nation's capital that he was told by various staffers on that committee in the October 2016 timeframe that if former Secretary Hillary Clinton had won the November election, Schiff would be offered the position of CIA director. This is like, I suppose, appointing the wolf as the head of the hen house. Imagine this, right? Schiff, the guy who is spreading the worst possible, biggest load of crap, fake intelligence against his political rival, would then have been made the head of the very agency he was misusing. You begin to wrap your head around this. It really just makes you think how close we were back in 2016 to an unrecoverable position in America. Had Trump been defeated, none of the subsequent events over the last 8 years would have unfolded. Perhaps we would not have had a chance for a second opportunity, a second chance at President Trump. And I'll say this, as I think about it, at that particular point in time, Trump had so many enemies. And they weren't all named, they were all just Democrats. Many of them, frankly, were inside the Republican Party. And so I'm telling you, I'm convinced that we came within an absolute hair, and I mean a hair, of perhaps being in an unrecoverable place as a nation. Well, I tell you, somebody's looking out for us. All right, let's unpack it. What can be done? Can Adam Schiff be arrested for any of this? How does this fit into the greater investigation that Trump's Department of Justice is undertaking right now into the Trump-Russia collusion hoax and the subsequent lawfare launched against Trump, his associates, and his supporters? Those are all great questions, which I will answer when we come back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Let me tell you, folks, the Schiff has hit the fan. Adam Schiff, deep trouble over revelations that he was leaking information, classified information, out of the committee that he was on, the House Select Intelligence Committee, all in an effort to discredit and to damage politically President Donald J. Trump. This was during Trump's first term in office. Actually, the process of this started before Trump became president, while Obama was still in office. So, number one question people are asking is statute of limitations. Okay, let me quick note on this. Generally, as I understand it, for something like this, it could be up to 5 years statute of limitations. So if something occurred back in 2016, 2017, you can do the math. Here's the problem for Mr. Schiff. The way this reads to me is that it is a component of the case that the Department of Justice is quietly building against Obama, Hillary Clinton, Swalwell, who, by the way, figures in the story too. He was one of the leakers, allegedly, according to the 302s, the FBI 302s that have come out, and all the other Democrats that engaged in this plot to discredit Trump, to wound him, to hurt him, and then to oust him from office once he became president. And the type of case that they are building here is a racketeering case. They are alleging a vast conspiracy. Now, for these racketeering cases, you have a series of criminal acts that are done in concert, sort of they're working together. Think of it like a giant criminal group project. And they get together, they put, they little crime here, little crime there, this little thing, and they're all elements in furtherance of the conspiracy. The conspiracy continued through through the Biden administration and basically into the current present era. it culminated in that, right? So what I'm getting at is, while the specific statute of limitations could have expired on a leak that occurred in 2016, it gets combined and wrapped into this greater conspiracy case. So Schiff is, on that basis, not out of the woods. There's another thing I heard in all of this, and by the way, it's what the FBI used originally. And by the way, the FBI, another note, the FBI investigated these statements. Obviously, they took the witness statement of the whistleblower from the committee and didn't act on it. One of the things that Adam Schiff and his office, they released a statement today saying that this smear against Adam Schiff is absolutely false, blah, blah, blah. And they called the guy, the leaker, excuse me, not the leaker, the whistleblower, Schiff is the leaker, called him a disgruntled former staffer. And he said, but this is great, even Trump's own Department of Justice and an independent inspector general found this individual to not be credible. Okay. I kind of have to dispose of this now because it's, what is it now? August 12th, 2025. I think we understand today better than we ever have just how thoroughly compromised Trump's Department of Justice was, day one, and honestly, all the way through the end of his presidency. Trump really never had a good attorney general. He never had the benefit of a department that was fighting for him and for his agenda. They were all Obama, moles and well, yeah, not revolutionaries. I mean, they were actively working there as part of the resistance. So I'm not that interested that it was Trump's Department of Justice to let these people off the hook. The people at the DOJ in Washington were probably working together with Adam Schiff to try to dispose of Trump. So that's one thing. The other thing that's found in here, because there's a lot of reference to this, is that this leaking was somehow protected under the Constitution's speech and debate clause. Now, what is the speech and debate clause? Basically put, members of Congress are immune generally from whatever they say on the floor of the House, the floor of the Senate, as part of their debate on legislating. So, if I get elected to Congress, I become a state congressman, let's say from Nevada. I go to D.C. By the way, that's a job I just would never want. People that do it, it's a tough gig, lots of travel, whatever. You got to sit next to AOC. No thanks. Well, I'm just saying, no thank you. At any rate, you can go there, you can sit, you can stand and you can say whatever you want, and you're not held to libel laws. You can basically say whatever you want. Now, otherwise, this is an interesting point here in the Constitution. It reads like this: otherwise legitimate political interactions external to the legislative sphere, for example, disseminating information outside of Congress, are generally not considered protective legislative acts. Third, the clause does not immunize criminal conduct that is clearly not part of the due functioning of the legislative process. My read on this is quite simple. Every time you see in this story figuring any information saying, but what, he was a speech and debate clause, it doesn't apply. The speech and debate clause does not confer upon a lowly member of the House of Representatives the power to declassify classified information. If you've been with me for a while here on the program, you know the process that's required there. I think the only person really in the government who has unilateral power to declassify is the president himself. It is kind of interesting that the Democrats went so hard against Trump on the subject of handling classified information, and now we've caught one of their biggest darlings with his hand in the cookie jar, literally doing much worse than Trump ever did, leaking stuff to the media. And he was getting away with it for years, protected by the very FBI charged with investigating this stuff. It is maddening. So when we come back, how does, by the way, stacking on top of the other problems for Adam Schiff, and why? What's the Republican Senate going to do about this? Great questions. Back after this. Don't go anywhere. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. By the way, listener SW just emailed me here on my email, sam@whatsrightshow.com. That's where you reach me. SW writes, congratulations, tremendous metric on being 22 out of the top 100 conservative podcasts, must-listen-to podcasts in 2025. Friends, thank you. SW, I appreciate the kind words, and thank you for listening. Look, what can I tell you? I'm humbled. I have a great team, but it comes down to you. You listen. You make this possible. You download the podcast. You listen. You write the reviews. So I'm just a guy talking into the can every day here in front of course, the Sam Cam, which you can see also video if you should so desire. Okay. Adam Schiff. Ooh, boy. This was the press conference, Press Secretary Leavitt today talking about Adam Schiff. I think she puts this quite succinctly when she describes the situation unfolding here with what Kash Patel released in his 302 documents. These interview documents seem to suggest a strong likelihood that Mr. Adam Schiff, when he was a congressman in California and on the House Committee of Intelligence, decided to leak classified information to hurt Donald Trump. This was Leavitt this morning from the White House press room.
The president has already said he wants to see Adam Schiff held accountable for the countless lies he told the American people in relation to the Russiagate scandal. I brought Tulsi Gabbard out to this podium to talk to you about all of that, and this administration is taking accountability very seriously. As for this new FBI whistleblower report, I understand Kash Patel last night declassified a 302 FBI document showing that a whistleblower who is a Democrat, a career intelligence officer who worked for Democrats on the House Intel Committee for more than a decade, repeatedly warned the FBI in 2017 that then Rep. Adam Schiff had approved leaking classified information to smear then President Donald Trump over the Russiagate scandal. This is obviously a bombshell whistleblower report. Hopefully more people in this room will cover it as such. And I have a quote from the FBI director for all of you. He has said this: for years, certain officials used their positions to selectively leak classified information to shape political narratives. It was all done with one purpose: to weaponize intelligence and law enforcement for political gain. Those abuses eroded public trust in our institutions. The FBI will now lead the charge with our partners at DOJ, and Congress will have the chance to uncover how political power may have been weaponized and to restore accountability.
By the way, does anybody miss Karine Jean-Pierre? Whatever the hell her name was. Mop Top is what I called her. Gosh, this Caroline Leavitt is, well, dare I say, competent. But I'm playing this clip for you folks. One very simple, straightforward reason, and that is to answer a question. Will something happen to Adam Schiff? Will he be held accountable? I told you, there's a way to get over the statute of limitations. You wrap it all up in the conspiracy case, right? It's an act in furtherance of the conspiracy. The conspiracy continued through the end of Trump's term and into the time period when statute of limitations are still haven't expired. So this is good stuff. It doesn't sound to me, just reading a little tea leaves here, it doesn't sound to me like this official spokesperson for the Trump administration is planning to go easy on Adam Schiff. Just doesn't sound like that at all. And nor should they, right? Nor should they. Can I say one other small little observation? Notice that the Trump administration is releasing. They're not leaking it to the media. They're coming out. They're declassifying stuff. They're doing it properly. And they are releasing the information about Obama, about Hillary, about, Brennan. They're releasing this in not dribs and drabs, but methodically, straight, every day, every week, there's some development. Now, in my opinion, you do this when your intention is to condition the public for the likelihood of an actual criminal indictment and prosecution. This right now, we're still in the phase. If you're asking, okay, enough is enough. When does the indictment come down? Okay, back up. It takes a little bit of time. Be patient. You know me, I'm willing to be critical of Pam Bondi. But I'm telling you, as an attorney, these things do not happen overnight. You can't just say, I got the evidence. There it is. Boom. What else do you need? There's so much more. These people did evil for over 9 years. And they've got to build this case. And then they've got to go present it to a grand jury and get the indictment. And then they got to go in there at 6 a.m. on the nose with the full Gestapo, squad. Literally, give him the same treatment that Roger Stone got. Stone, for his part, by the way, Stone's reporting, I saw this right before I went on air. Roger Stone claims that Brennan is in Austria, that he's in hiding. He's probably just on a trip. I love Roger. But I don't know that Brennan has fled the country. When Brennan shows up in Belize, Robbie, then I think what country doesn't have extradition? Chris Murphy, no, he's not going to El Salvador. Bukele's going to knock these people right back. Venezuela, there's an idea, Robbie. They can all go to Venezuela. Could be the new seat of the Democratic Party, Venezuela. Caracas. They could hang out there with the House members from Texas that ran away. It just could be a giant Democrat kumbaya. They could live in a socialist paradise. My mind, my fantasies kind of wandering here. But no, I don't know that anybody's actually fleeing the jurisdiction, but these people are all under serious criminal investigation. Make no mistake about it. Well, Schiff is still facing, and it's got the mortgage. The mortgage fraud deal is so straightforward, open and shut. He and Letitia James are both in the crosshairs. There's no two ways about it. And to repeat, these are both very open and shut cases. Schiff is accused of getting a mortgage for his house in Maryland. He got one mortgage, then I think he got a refi of some kind. Anyway, there's more than one round of documents. So one of the rounds is fairly recent. And in these mortgage documents, he attests under penalty of perjury that the residence, the house, is his permanent residence. Now, if you've ever applied for a mortgage, I think you understand you get a little bit of a better rate for a primary residence than you do for a secondary home. Also, by the way, secondary residences tend to be more difficult. You could get approved for a primary residence and get denied for financing, for a secondary home. This can happen. So there is an advantage, this is my point, an advantage to claiming a house when it comes to the bank getting a loan, that it's your primary residence. He did this in a residence in a state that he didn't live in. I mean, yes, he spends a lot of time in D.C., but in order to be a congressman, which he was back then, from California, you've got to live in California. And the law is pretty explicitly clear about it. So he's in trouble, doesn't matter how you slice it. He either was ineligible to be in Congress or he lied on his mortgage documents. What did I say about it yesterday? It's like a chess move. It's checkmate. No matter what move you make, you lose. Now, Letitia James, very similar, claimed that an out-of-state residence was her primary residence at the time that she was Attorney General, going after Trump. And, either she was in the state of New York living full-time, or she wasn't. If she wasn't, okay, she didn't lie on the form. If she wasn't, though, okay, then how was she eligible for her position in New York? A short answer is she wasn't, or she wouldn't have been. Now, I think we all understand what the actual game here is. They just lied under oath, under penalty of perjury. They lied on their and defrauded a bank. Bank fraud. Complete, straight up bank fraud. That's what this looks like to me. Now, who's investigating this? Well, Bill Pulte, right, who's part of the Trump administration here, and he's actually oversees these any federal loans would fall under his purview, and so he gets into this. By the way, where was this? This was Saturday with Charlie Hurt on Fox News, talking about, because he's he's the federal housing director. Pulte talks about these various problems that Mr. Schiff and Ms. James seem to have.
Well, in 1983, she says that her father is her husband to get a mortgage.
Right.
Then in the 2000s, she buys a home, which is listed under the certificate of occupancy in New York as having 5 units. You can only really get a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or other related mortgages if you have 4 or less units. It's because units that have units of over 5 are actually more risky. It's part of the reason we had some of the mortgage crisis that we had in 2008. This is a very serious issue. Then she had multiple free refinancings over the years, represented that the units were either 1 unit or 4 units, when really the certificate of occupancy said 5 units. Then, to make things worse, Charlie, she said that she had a primary residence in Virginia when she was the Attorney General of New York. She signed an affidavit, and on top of that, she had a second home, if you can believe that, in Virginia, that we believe is not her second home. So I believe this is riddled with mortgage fraud, and frankly, I think that's why she knew so much about the law in terms of how to go after President Trump. Was she was the fraudster, right, not President Trump.
Huh. You know, can I remind us all of what the case that Letitia James brought against Trump consisted of? Do you remember this was the Mar-a-Lago inflated value? Mar-a-Lago. Who? She claimed that Trump inflated the price of Mar-a-Lago. And, I'm not going to relitigate this, but what did she say? It was like worth 15 million, 16 million, something like that. Today, I could make an argument that it's an 800 million, maybe $1 billion property. I mean, it is extremely valuable. It's in one of the hottest, not temperature-wise, but I mean, price-wise, zip codes in the country. And when Zohran Mamdani becomes the dictator of New York, every last remaining wealthy New Yorker who doesn't want to get hung in the streets is going to end up in South Florida. And that's when Mar-a-Lago is going to be like 1.2, 1.3 billion. But I digress. It was absurd, right? And the banks came in and they testified, no, we got our own valuation, and we know Trump's value actually wasn't far off. And, that was a nothing case. That was a nothing case. This is penalty of perjury, declaring under oath a very specific representation about what the property is, what it will be. Trump never declared that it was going to be a multifamily home when he really intended to make it into a club, or that it was going to be a primary residence or anything like. He could have done all sorts of things, apparently, in the spirit of Letitia James's dealings with banks. He didn't do any of that. He gave his value, what he thought the value was. An independent appraiser came in, he gave their value. The bank did their own number, and they let Trump the money, which he paid back. That was the extent of it. So you see why perhaps I, like you, we might get a little bit irritated when we hear from our friends on the other side of the aisle constantly tell us Trump is a felon. The people that were chasing Trump down were the biggest felons of them all. And yesterday on the program, I said that the walls are closing in on the Democrats. That after 8 years of hearing nothing but the media parroting claims, trying to outdo each other about how Trump was on the ropes, how it was imminent that his entire world was going to collapse, what happened? Trump emerged not only the clear, definitive victor of the 2024 election. He emerged billions wealthier and leading a political movement that has gained an enormous amount of strength and has literally taken over the Republican Party and stolen from the Democrats perhaps 15 to as much as 20% of their support. It's astounding when you think about it. This is not going away, folks. It's not going away, and it's going to get a lot worse for Democrats in the coming days, weeks, and months. Sam Mirejovsky, quick break here. Not top of the hour soon. We still have one more segment. Hang tight. The What's Right show will return in a moment. Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here, News Talk 840 KXNT. Yes, Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email. So there it is. Well, we'll get to the crazy Democrats in D.C. in a minute. I'm still completely astounded by this. How stupid they are to be putting themselves on the absolute wrong end of this 80-20 issue. But before we do this, did you remember a couple weeks ago when it was Epstein? And listen, I devoted time to it as well because I react to the news. If it's in the news, I'm going to talk about it. Now, a lot has happened since the news was filled with Epstein. One, Trump hasn't touched it one bit. Second, a lot of other things, most of it very good news, has been going on, and Trump has been flooding the zone with news. And the Democrats simply don't know what to refer to or what to talk about. So I was obviously big news today. The Schiff the 302 interview with the whistleblower who came forward. This is a report that then was given to Just the News. John Solomon, by the way, the guy who broke the story, has been an excellent source of news on things going on inside the administration. I have to give John major props. He's one of the people who has, I think he was the first to reveal that his sources were telling him that Pam Bondi was in the process of convening a grand jury in Florida to get some of these crazy Democrats hauled into court down there. And for obvious reasons, that being good news, because, of course, Florida, a much better venue to hold people accountable than the District of Columbia. But I digress. One of the first things to defend himself against these accusations, Adam Schiff said that this was a nothing burger, called them baseless smears, not credible, unsubstantiated, and that the president, meaning Trump and his allies, meant to distract from their plummeting poll numbers and the Epstein file scandal. So, about 2 minutes before the story broke, Harry Enton went on CNN and said, well, the interest in the Epstein story is down a lot of percent. I mean, a lot. Listen to this.
I would say that this is, from at least a political point of view, quickly turning into a dud of a story. What am I talking about here?
Which is wild.
Which is wild. Which
where
is
this has been for 3 weeks.
Exactly. Take a look here. Google searches for Epstein down 89% versus just 3 weeks ago, falling through the floor. It is no longer the top term searched alongside Donald Trump's name. That's been trading off between Taros and Vladimir Putin, with obviously the meeting coming up later this week. But at this particular point, the American people's interest in this story, it's quickly becoming something of a nothing burger.
Think about just some of the things that have happened in the last couple of weeks. I mean, Trump, what was that, at least 2 or 3 different peace deals between warring countries, Cambodia and Thailand. The deal with the Armenians. He's got what? He's got Putin and perhaps even Zelensky meeting in Canada soon. He's got tariffs deals coming into place. He's got major revelations every day. You know, and we'll talk about the president's popularity when we come back. I am convinced this deal in the District of Columbia, this redistricting, gerrymandering fight that Trump is sort of in, tangentially, all of this is good for the president. It's good for Republicans. And we still have to talk about what the hell the Republicans are going to do with Adam Schiff in the Senate, right? George Santos got booted by Republicans when he got himself into trouble. Let's see what the Republicans do. All eyes on you, John Thune. Sam Mirejovsky, back after this. Making radio great again. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Radio Network. Sam at what'srightshow.com. Beautiful day in sunny Las Vegas, Nevada. Pretty warm, just the way I like it. All right, my Twitter on X, as it is now referred to, at What's Right Sam. I talked a little bit about this. Look, I'm just curious what the Senate is going to do with Adam Schiff. So we have these allegations. If they culminate into an investigation, I believe they are, because the Trump administration is saying that it's being investigated. So the next logical step would be an indictment. Now, why is this interesting? Well, remember a man named George Santos. Santos reported to prison a couple weeks ago. A House Ethics Committee report cited substantial evidence that Santos deceived donors, filed false campaign finance statements, used campaign funds for personal expenses, including renting his apartment, trips, luxury goods, Botox, and allegedly a subscription even to OnlyFans. Anyway, he was indicted by the Department of Justice in May of 2023, and he was kicked out by his fellow Republicans in the House. Now, look, at the time I remember saying, this guy is a dirty bird, right? This stuff appeared to be true, and, we Republicans are not like the Democrats. We don't tolerate this kind of nonsense in our ranks. The problem is the Democrats will never do this when they're in charge. But what does happen? Here right now we have a Republican-led Senate. If there is an indictment handed down against Adam Schiff, either for the mortgage fraud or for the vast conspiracy against Donald Trump leaking classified documents, the allegations are, quite terrible. It goes to the heart of his job. He can't be trusted in the Senate. He ought to be expelled. And John Thune, the Republican leader of the Senate, ought to lead the charge. We will see if it happens. I'm a little worried that with, all the various rhino Republicans in the chamber, such as Susan Collins and our friend Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. No relation to me. That's Mirejovsky, not Murkowski. Different branch of the family. Anyway, I kind of doubt it's going to happen. Oh, we'll follow the story. Now, big news out of Texas. The Senate there, the state Senate, has voted to make the map official. And I took a long, hard look at this map. I finally had a chance to look at it in detail because it's passed now. It's there. It's waiting for the House to approve it. The House Democrats are still somewhere in the world, somewhere in the blue yonder, hanging out in Illinois and New York and other friendly states that are being led. They're led by governors who, of course, are Democrats. But the map is now set and just needs that final formality of having the House approve it. It doesn't look, Robbie, nearly as bad as the map in Illinois. This looks like a defensible map. Now, what is the difference between a highly gerrymandered map and a perhaps a more passable map? And how can you tell from just looking at it? Well, the purpose of gerrymandering is to try to geographically define the borders of a congressional district or any kind of political district so that your party has a guarantee of getting a majority of the votes in that district. And so you go, Democrats, there's pockets, right? There's more conservative parts of town, more liberal parts of town. And so you try to create these districts that will basically favor one party over the other. And in order to do that, if you look at the Illinois map, you see these borders that streak across the whole state and then do a little loop and then come back up and around it. Almost, it looks like Ted Kennedy driving, through Chappaquiddick. It's just a circuitous, twisted, convoluted path, and it looks, Robbie, you're right. It looks better than Maryland. It looks better than a lot of lib states. Yeah, I mean, look, my point is, the kerfuffle here is ridiculous. The Dems are going to lose this battle. The number one problem that the Democrats, I think, didn't understand is by drawing attention to gerrymandering, all of a sudden, everybody in the country is aware what they're doing. Everybody in the country now sees that Democrats have been playing this dirty game for years. And I think a lot of Americans really weren't aware how bad it was. And so now there is this, this awareness. You have Newsom, you've got the Hochul in New York. You have every Democrat who wants to be a contender in 2028, because that's a huge part of what this is all about, right? Grandstanding, winning over hearts and minds of the Democratic Party faithful, coming out as the chief antagonist, anti-Trump candidate. So, so they're all out there and they're all very loudly, complaining about what the Republicans are doing in Texas, but it's just drawing attention to the immense craziness that Democrats have done in these, blue states. Just to remind you, in Illinois, Republicans have 47% of the statewide vote. How many seats do you think? 3 out of 17. That's 18%. California, we hear nonstop from Governor Newsom, right? 40% of the statewide vote, Republicans. That's a healthy minority, yes? Yet Republicans control only 17% of the seats, 9 out of 52. Massachusetts, 35% Republican, 0 seats in Congress. Connecticut, 38%, the statewide vote, 0. 42% Republicans in New York. They have 7 out of 26 seats, representing 26, almost 27% of the districts there. It just goes on and on. Now, Newsom yesterday, I don't know if you saw this, he threw down the gauntlet to Trump. He said, this was all caps, by the way, from his gubernatorial account. All caps, okay? I guess he was shouting. Gavin Newsom, I gotta read this to you. Donald Trump, if you do not stand down, we will be forced to lead an effort to redraw the maps in California to offset the rigging of maps in red states. But if the other states call off their redistricting efforts, we will do the same. Thank you for your attention to this matter. What? Gavin Newsom is the biggest buffoon on the planet. What is he actually threatening Trump with? Oh, we're gonna redistrict too. Okay. Donald Trump is holding a census. Gavin Newsom is threatening Donald Trump with a pea shooter. Donald Trump is bringing a nuclear bomb to this contentious debate. And what's the nuclear bomb? The nuke is the census going through saying, no, we're not counting illegals. Yes, we're going to count this. We're not going to use COVID, funny counting, estimating, all this stuff. We're going to actually count people in the state of California and discover that there are far fewer people in California than reported. And what will that mean at the end of the day? Well, pretty easy. California will have fewer seats, right? If California currently has 52 members of Congress, huge, right? Huge. They could lose 10, maybe 12 seats. And who will gain the seats? Well, I'd like you to meet my friends in Texas and Florida. Even right here in Nevada, where I live, I mean, we know here that many, many, many Californians have left over the last 5 years. That includes me. Every time I turn around on my street, there's another car, somebody moving into a house, California plates. And yet we hear from Gavin Newsom, no, the math, the numbers, no. People are moving into the state of California. We're growing as a state. It's almost like when they talk about the crime statistics in Washington, D.C. Oh, they're going down. Crime is going down in 2024. I don't know what Trump is all upset about. Meanwhile, every person on the street who actually lives there knows that the city is devolving into a criminal hellhole. That's what it's like. This will turn out to be an enormous fraud, the way they were counting in the last census. And Trump is right to do this. So Gavin Newsom, I don't think even Trump has responded because Trump's busy, doing things. But this redistricting fight is huge. So yesterday, Greg Abbott spoke about this. We'll get to his remarks. Also, the vice president talking about it as well on Fox News. We'll get to all of it when we return. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT.
The Salmon Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Yeah, of course, per usual, the governor of California, the state to the immediate left of me here in Las Vegas, Nevada, has beclowned himself once again with this gauntlet thrown down to Trump, giving him 24 hours to stand down in Texas on their redistricting efforts, or else they'll do the same thing in California. Sam Mirejovsky here, host of the What's Right show, back behind the What's Right microphone. So Greg Abbott, Texas governor, talks about the strategy, the game of gerrymandering. This is in a speech from his office last night. And basically, the blue states can threaten all they want. In his view and opinion, there's really not much more they can do. There's not many more seats that they can squeeze out.
All those big blue states, they've already gerrymandered. Look at the map of Illinois. Look at the map of California, New York, and Massachusetts, and so many other blue states. They gerrymandered a long time ago. They got nothing left with regard to what they can do. And know this, if California tries to gerrymander 5 more districts, listen, Texas has the ability to eliminate 10 Democrats in our state. We can play that game more than they can because they have fewer Republican districts in their states.
Bingo, exactly. Now, what happens, incidentally, when we start to do the census? This is where it gets interesting, right? And I was just looking at this number of overall foreign-born population down 2.2 million in January to July. So the illegal population is estimated to have fallen 1.6 million so far this year, but the total overall foreign-born population down 2.2 million. Where from? From Texas? From Florida? Maybe a few. You got to think that a significant number of that came from blue states. This is just the tip of the iceberg. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics Household Survey. may not be that accurate. When we do the census, the number may, in fact, become far higher. And that, of course, is what I keep getting at. That would be another blow to the already beleaguered Democratic Party. J.D. Vance, Vice President of the United States, went on Fox News Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo and said basically that there's just not a lot of juice left to squeeze from these blue states to eke out even more Democratic districts. They've already gone too far, echoing the sentiment of Governor Abbott.
There's just not a whole lot of juice left out of that lemon. The Democrats have already gone as far as they possibly can. Let me give you a crazy statistic. So I believe that it's in New Jersey, Illinois, New York, California, and there's one other Democrat state where you take those 5 states, you have a large number of Democrat representatives. But here's the crazy statistic. President Trump won 43% of those 5 states. And Democrats have something like 85% of the representatives out of those states. You cannot gerrymander these far left states anymore. And that's the whole point. We have unilaterally disarmed in the Republican Party. We have said to the Democrats, if you want to rig the game in your favor in blue states, go ahead. We're going to do nothing to fight back against it. That's crazy. It makes it harder for us to pass our agenda. It makes it harder for us to win elections. And most importantly, it gives Democrats this ability to run roughshod over the country without any pushback from the American people. The democratic system in this country is broken because who you vote for doesn't necessarily get reflected in who your representatives are. We're just trying to rebalance the scales and, frankly, push back against a very unfair system created by the Democrats.
Think about it like this. For years, Democrats have done this. They've done it openly, brazenly. They have dropped these gerrymandered nukes, gerrymandering bombs of great destruction, right? Destructive force. They've eradicated Republican districts left and right. They don't care because Democrats are all about power. And along come Republicans, the Republicans that used to lose elections. The Republicans pre-Trump that just went, oh, were you doing that? Well, we're going to be nice. It's like imagine fighting the Soviet Union. Soviet Union is building up, back to nukes, a nuclear arsenal, and the United States goes, oh, you know what? We're not going to do that. That's not who we are. We're above that. In fact, we're just going to unilaterally disarm. I don't know. I think the Soviet Union would still be around if we did this, right? You don't do this is not how you do it when your opponent is playing for keeps. When your opponent is, using every available tool at his disposal to beat you up, you got to fight back. And that's the reason I'm in such a good mood lately, folks. I'm completely honest. Finally, first time in my life, I honest to goodness feel like the Republicans are fighting back. And I remember, it reminds me of all the times when Trump was running in 15 and 16, sitting down with Republicans, most of them a little bit older, a little bit boomer, okay, who would tell me, yeah, I just don't like how he talks. I'm a Reagan Republican. Reagan was a gentleman. He was a gentleman. I remember thinking in the back of my head, Reagan spent a lot of time with Tip O'Neill upstairs in the White House playing patty cake and drinking and talking about old stories, Irish stories. And did it get Reagan anything? Did it? I mean, some of you can tell me better because you'll recall this era in our history. I don't think so. Tip O'Neill would then, Speaker of the House, right, get up in the next day and go and stick it to Reagan and put a knife in his back every opportunity he got. Democrats are beasts, political animals. The Republicans are always, but we're going to be nice. And then that idiot W came around who's like, compassionate conservatism. There's an idea. We're going to have feelings. We're going to be nice. And people are going to love us. Nobody loves you because you're nice in politics. The Republicans gave the Democrats a little inch, and the Dems took the whole damn yardstick. And then along comes Donaldus Maximus, the gold eagle himself. Macaw, right? Talons outstretched, going in there. He was like clawing these Democrats. You can picture this. This is how I see it. A little metaphor. This is right. This is the way to do it. For too long, the Dems have actually been a minority party and a minority ideology. They do not represent the will of the people. They have what little power they have right now by cheating and by stealing. That leads me to this whole District of Columbia mess. My God, Trump is doing this exactly right. Sam Mirejovsky, back after this. Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian behind the What's Right microphone. This program brought to you by the only law firm to trust for your personal injury case. Offices in Nevada, in Las Vegas, and of course also in California, safely ensconced behind the orange curtain in Newport Beach, California. Yes, a rare oasis of sanity is how I call it. Orange County in particular, Newport in particular, very conservative there. No question about it. So, Sam Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Updates from the District of Columbia. Today there was a press conference. It did not go well. Sometimes I like to just skip to the point. The police chief there, who is, wait for it, a female. Wait for it. One more detail. Appears to be a minority. At least as best as I can tell looking at her. Why is this relevant? Just appears to be another DEI hire. An absolute useless political animal. Not good at her job. So the city is, the police force, obviously now under the direction and control of the executive branch of government. It has been federalized pursuant to Trump's constitutional powers. As the president, this is the District of Columbia. This is not like an independent state. It is it's an organized special district. We all understand what DC is. And someone asked her, a reporter asks this gal running the police department there, formerly running the police. She's still the police chief, but she takes her orders from somebody. What is the chain of command? So now that Trump has taken over, like, where do you get your orders from? It's kind of a basic question. If you pay attention to this, it seems that she doesn't know what chain of command is.
What the chain of command is now?
What does that mean?
Well, is it Pam Bondi speaking to the mayor, speaking to you, or how does this work?
So the executive order is clear. The president has requested MPD services, and our home rule charter outlines the process. The president designated Attorney General Bondi as his proxy to request services through me.
That was the mayor who had to tell the police chief to step aside. What does that mean? By the way, the police department is under investigation for instructing its officers to downgrade felonies to misdemeanors in order to underreport crime and make it look on paper as if criminal activity is going down. It's a pretty open and obvious case of fraud, if you ask me. This is wild. Abby Phillip on CNN. You know Abby Phillip. Sometimes she's got Scott Jennings on her show. That's the only time it's watchable. When Scott is up there just whacking everybody senseless. Anyway. See, so this morning, does she think this is bad for Trump? Does Abby Phillip thinks that this is a slam on Trump? She basically calls Trump Batman. Let's play the tape.
Let's get right to what America's talking about. Donald Trump makes himself Batman, and the nation's capital is Gotham City. The President of the United States has declared himself crime fighter in chief, and he's taking over Washington's police force. It is a move that the D.C. mayor is calling unsettling and unprecedented.
He's making himself Batman. Okay. So I see a fictional character, if I understand the Batman, story. It's a fictional character, but he's a handsome man who is very physically agile, who has unlimited money, and who, for the sake of the public good, in Latin we'd say pro bono publico, for the betterment of the public, he risks his own neck to bring safety and order back to a city, right? This is the Batman story, that has been taken over by criminals and where the police and politicians are essentially helpless. I don't know. I know Abby Phillip is not trying to make Trump look good, but she inadvertently did this. When you talk about language and words, when you say something like this, he's trying to make himself look like Batman. All you see after hearing that is Trump as Batman. And it's not pejorative or comical even, because everybody understands the plot line of every Batman movie, comic strip, whatever, is bad guy getting away with terrible things, terrorizing the public, poor people, normal people, ordinary people's lives upended by criminal activity. And along comes, ta-da! Here comes some handsome actor playing a guy in a bat suit who saves the day. I mean, we have a injury lawyer here in Las Vegas who pretends to be Batman. I think that's his shtick. He's not actually calling himself, but and he thinks of this as being very flattering to himself. Well, I don't know if he's got a Batman-like physique. I don't know enough about him, Robbie. That's his shtick. So Trump now is Bruce Wayne, apparently. The Democrats are so dumb. Once upon a time, the Democratic Party actually believed in law and order. It's a clip now making the rounds of one Joe Biden many moons ago in 1992. I believe this was on the Senate floor. His words here, by the way, his words protected by the speech and debate clause. So any admission that he makes here, well, may not necessarily be true, but he can't be sued for this. Listen to what he admits to. Back in 1992, talking about crime in Washington, D.C. 1992. Whew. This came back from the past.
Driving home, my staff, who lives here in the Hill, reminded me, don't stop at a stoplight until I'm out of town. If I see a red light late at night, since there's very little traffic, slow up at the other block so I never come to a full stop except in the middle of the block because of carjackings. Stopping at a light, people standing in a corner, walking up with a gun.
Joe Biden in 1992 didn't even want to stop for red lights in D.C., worried he was going to get carjacked. Now, that was in 1992. That was in between the interregnum period of one Marion Barry. Marion Barry, the lovable, crack-smoking former mayor, may he rest in peace, of Washington, D.C., from 79 to 91 and 95 to 99, got himself in a little bit of trouble. I believe he was consuming or enjoying, well, I don't know if you say consuming with crack, but he was enjoying his drug of choice on a video that leaked, and that man got reelected in D.C. after that happened. If there ever was a city in the U.S. begging to be saved by Trump man Batman, it's D.C. And so Trump is doing this, and the Democrats have gone apoplectic over it. They are absolutely losing their minds over it. Anand Giridharadas, Anand, I think this is how you pronounce it. No idea. MSNBC. This is a guy on there making commentary about this. Says the real crime in D.C. is January 6th. This is all they've got. Wild.
I think it's really important to be clear about what is going on here. And a relatively small crime problem is being used for specific authoritarian purposes that we know and understand. So let's be clear about D.C. does have one really big crime problem, which was the January 6th insurrection incited by the current president of the United States. And his first act in coming back was pardoning all the people who tried to overturn constitutional republic order in Washington, D.C. When I go to D.C., I'm not afraid of losing my wallet so much as I'm afraid of losing my vote. I'm not afraid of losing my wallet so much as I'm afraid that my children's freedom to breathe will be stolen in a world where climate change policy is non-existent. I'm afraid that the future of middle-class people will be stolen by the very things you were talking about, cutting the safety net, cutting Medicaid, cutting rural hospitals.
You know, this is funny. Here's a guy, well-to-do guy, journalist, lives in a nice part of town, and he's basically telling us that because he doesn't see the crime, it doesn't exist. The enormous elitism that the Democrats are displaying over this issue is astonishing. It even surprises me. What this is telling ordinary Americans who are affected by crime, who have seen a real increase in criminal activities in their neighborhoods, who have experienced themselves or been victims of some form of crime, and that's new, right, over the last, new in the last 5 years compared to, decades before. I include myself in this. Broken into for the first time in my life under Joe Biden. Thank you, Joe Biden. Happened during his presidency. Coincidence? Well, we've got a lot of gangs running around, organized criminal gangs, illegals flooding the border. Guys that broke in may very well have been that. Look, police here couldn't find anything. My point is, you can't tell us that have experienced an uptick in criminal activity that there's nothing to see here. It's just a part of your imagination. This is like telling somebody who can't feed their family because of rising costs that the economy's never been stronger and that there's no inflation out there. Oh, wait. The Democrats and the media did that for 4 years under Joe Biden. They did it day in after day. They would just plain out look at you and say, no, your gas prices isn't higher. Your food isn't more expensive. Your rent didn't go up. Don't ignore that. Then they lost the election by a lot. Yeah, this is great. You're supposed to double down on your failure, right? That's a winning political strategy, correct? I don't think so. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Back in a moment, folks. Don't go anywhere. The What's Right Show brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Trump has threatened to sue Jerome Powell. Went on a bit of a tirade, Trump this morning did, against Powell. Said he faults Steve Mnuchin, his former Treasury Secretary, for pushing Powell on him, and that Powell has been terrible. Welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here, host of the What's Right Show, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m., right here on News Talk 840 KXNT. So, what does this mean? I think the basis of the suit against Powell would be the cost overruns, the 2.5, maybe 3 billion spent on the remodel of the Federal Reserve headquarters. So I think it would be a lawsuit by the Trump administration, the federal government essentially suing Powell in his individual capacity as the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and it would be an attempt at his ouster. Now, my opinion on this is Powell could not leave the building sooner. He's a complete weasel, and he's obviously a nakedly partisan hack. When the real inflation numbers were spiraling out of control, crushing American families, Democrats denying it was happening, pretending it wasn't real. Kamala Harris telling Americans, oh, it's fine. It's the best. The Biden economy, build back better. It's going great. Powell actually dropped the rate in the middle of the election to help Kamala Harris. He did that specifically to reinforce the lie that the Biden economy was doing great when it obviously was not. Now, bring all this up, right, to tell you that, there's a plan right now. The Trump administration has a plan to get rid of Powell. This is just one of the things, one of the pressure points that they're putting on him. And Powell's not a strong person. People that know him have begun expressing concern for his overall well-being. He's starting to show signs of cracking under pressure. And all of that is done in order to persuade him to leave so that Trump doesn't have to go through firing him. So if he fires him, the Democrats are going to sue him. It's going to get tied up in court. It's going to be da-da-da-da-da. Just let him quit. Business owners, by the way, some of you will have an employee. You know you can't get rid of them, but you kind of make their life a little bit miserable, and you hope they put in their notice. Something like that. Now, how's the economy doing? The economy is, firing on all cylinders, it seems. We just got some new numbers. By the way, stock market went wild today. Big drop yesterday, made it up today. Energy spending is down. Food prices flattened in July. Kelly O'Grady, today on CNN, reports.
When you look at the key categories that we always look at, energy, food, and shelter, energy fell by 1.1%. That was largely driven because of gas prices falling in the month of July by 2.2%. Look at that food. I mean, this is where people spend their money, right? Food every single day. Food flat, 0%, and actually down at the grocery store by 0.1%. And then shelter, we always usually see an increase.
Okay. So housing prices went up a little bit, 0.2%. Remember where they were a year ago, 2 years ago? So we're seeing all this stuff come down. The reason rates went up is because we had inflation. Rates have to go up to curb inflation. Pain has to set in. Pain has set in. People are feeling the pain. It is happening. The economy wants to rebound. And Trump is right to push Powell to let some of the chains off, so to speak. So, I'll tell you, I think that this is the Democrats' worst nightmare, right? The Trump economy is working. Tariffs are working. Everything that was predicted about tariffs, that the economy would come crashing down, that we would have wild inflation, that we would, all of it has gone out the window. Powell, if he isn't nakedly partisan, he is at least still believing the so-called experts that inflation will cause runaway, that tariffs will cause runaway inflation, and that, if we lower rates, the whole thing spirals out of control. When, we need to deploy cash into this economy. There is an unprecedented amount of cash being withheld. People that previously had capital in the market have withdrawn it. Why would they risk it in the market? They're getting a handsome return. Some people on their cash return getting, doing hard money loans at 15, 20% because interest rates are so high. So this is just what I'm pointing out. Now, I mentioned earlier Harry Enton talking about the drop in interest in the story about Epstein, that nobody's interested. Google searches Trump Epstein gone down 89%. It's disappearing. He also talks about Trump's popularity. This was last night with Kate Bolden. So just finishing up the Epstein discussion, this is what he says about Trump's popularity.
So out of sight, out of mind, maybe, is applying here a little bit. But has it impacted, have you seen numbers that have impacted Trump's popularity, favorability, anything?
No, not really. I mean, take a look here. Let's take a look at the overall numbers. Trump's approval rating in July of 2025, it was 45%. It's still well within that margin of error here at 44%. And you compare that to where he was in his first term at this point. He was at 37%, so he's 7 points higher, very much in a different political universe now, significantly higher in terms of his overall approval rating than he was at this point in his first term. And more than that, among Republicans, his approval rating is near a record high, hovering right at about that 90% mark. So no, he hasn't lost any of that base. And when it comes to that center of the electorate, he's basically holding on there, and his overall approval rating, 44%, is pretty gosh darn good for him considering where he was at this point in term number 1.
There it is. Popularity holding steady, perhaps going up, far higher than it was this time in his first term. So again, Trump is defying all expectations. And by delivering significant progress on 80-20 issues, he'll continue to grow this. All right, friends. We'll see you tomorrow. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The podcast, number 22 out of 100 of must-listen-to podcasts, available wherever you get your podcasts.